Welcome, 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 everybody. My name is April, and as you all know, my spirits and I together, we are called Australia Standus. But welcome to the Conspiracies podcast. Thank you all for joining. Today, we're going to talk about a very tragic event that happened. Actually, two tragic events, and these were some major crashes, aviation, midair. So this is kind of a heavy-hearted reading. I wasn't anticipating or planning to do a reading like this week, but here we are. I felt it was priority, and Spirit wanted to give it priority in terms of the other readings that I had planned for this podcast. But um, I felt it was warranted to kind of just open up and talk a little bit about what my spirits were sharing with me, and the visions that they were giving me. And also, I was tapping and tuning into some images that were pretty graphic. And just because I'm viewing something on the news or I'm looking at something, I get all these images that come in spiritually. They show up in my third eye, and it was overwhelming. But a lot of the stuff I was seeing was kids. It was more like the spirits that have passed that were younger or younger adults. This is the connection I was getting. Of course, I was seeing older adults, but I was seeing like the younger generation. And so, behold, I didn't know that there was a whole ice skating team that was on the American Airlines for the flight that crashed. Besides the Black Hawk helicopter colliding with the American Airlines flight that went down into the water, from what it looked like to me, and very devastating. But they felt, these souls felt kind of young, and so, but also I had found out recently that there was like a pediatric patient or something like this on the Philadelphia plane
Yeah,
flight.
there was a child on it flying from
Yeah.
Mexico.
So
I
kind of
guess the Shriners had like sent the child up here for a surgery, I believe.
Yeah, and so this was kind of interesting that they were showing me the younger souls that were kind of trying to guide me to see what was going on, even though it was extremely graphic. But also too, when you guys, though, for those that are listening, when a soul passes in such a tragic way, they're trying to make sense as to why. And so the souls on the other side that are already there, whether this is be ancestors, guides, angels, so forth, they will show them what happened. And this mirrors a lot of what I had seen when I tap into souls that have passed from 9/11. And so no matter how many times, they try to say from the 9/11 events that it was this was like a terrorist attack, the way the souls describe the events that happened to me are much different than what they had portrayed as to what happened to those buildings and the planes. Um, and so I knew, no matter what anyone told me, even back then, I knew that the souls were telling me the truth, that hey, this is what was going on. It's an inside job. Okay. So I'm bringing this up because I'm back here at that theme. It's like the souls are kind of going, hey, excuse me, but this is like not exactly the accident that you're seeing, on a video. I mean, this was something that was in to some degrees, from what spirit was explaining to me and what the souls were showing me, it was planned. And so I went from that vision to the next thing that spirit showed me was, hey, they showed me the black helicopter, and then they mirrored the reading that I did on Kobe Bryant's helicopter. I said, well, why are you showing me the synergy of this? Why are you showing me the Kobe Bryant crash? And they said, well, it's something similar happened. So obviously they didn't share, this whole what happened. Like, obviously Kobe Bryant's helicopter um crashed into the hill, or wherever they crashed into. But what, for those that are listening, you can check out my Kobe Bryant reading. um I think I did it last year, I forget, but it's on my episodes here. Feel free to listen to it. because Spirit wanted me to bring this up because what I had explained in the Kobe Bryant crash, and the helicopter crash, is I had seen someone on the ground with a remote control, with one of those, those kids that have those little like remote control cars, and they have like a machine, like these little knobs, like a video game thing, and they have this long like antenna that comes from that device. Something similar was being shown to me with Kobe Bryant's helicopter that crashed into the side of the hill. Okay, in the morning in January. In January, and ironically, we're in January when this crash happened. Okay, very odd. So Spirit says, let's go back to that. And I do remember my spirit showing me this, that somebody was controlling part of the helicopter from the ground, and they were able to do something to the propellers or to some mechanical thing in the actual um operated um helicopter, that they were able to like shut something off where the propellers weren't going, or they were able to pull the helicopter down to the ground, and then they hit a button where maybe a bomb went off or something like this. So when it crashed, it really crashed, and then the boom went off, fire, flames, things like that. And I had seen somebody, per vision, okay, somebody like preparing the flight before the flight took off for Kobe, and they had put something at the back of the propel. Like, if you imagine a helicopter, you got your front propeller, the big one, you got the bottom tail end propeller, it's a small one. They put something back there. It was like a device, and this device was talking to the guy that was on the ground with remote control, and he was wearing jeans and this zip up windbreaker jacket, regular looking Caucasian dude that was waiting for the helicopter to come over the mountain. They showed me the whole thing. And it was very early in the morning. It was very cold. I could see the dew on the ground. He was up in this trail walking thing, so no one would notice him, just standing there. And he was controlling the fucking helicopter from the ground. And that was the first time I've ever seen anything like this, that I've ever even thought that that was even fathomable. Of course, we got all kinds of technology these days, but this was very advanced. So I'm bringing this up because this particular helicopter supposedly is like a military helicopter, um, this Black Hawk thing, and I did see people inside. Now, I don't know who's all in there, but what was really standing out to me was a female. And this kind of struck me. I saw a couple males and I saw this flash of a female. I don't know why this female stands out to me, but she does. Okay. Now, this is where it gets weird. Spirit says, hey, on this flight path, they were going to hit two other planes, and it didn't happen. So I'm thinking, okay, in the same night, or was this another day? But I'm not, it's not clear to me. But they said two other planes, it was heading in a direction of that flight path to hit them. And what strikes me as really alarming is they weren't in control, where they thought they were in control of this plane, of this helicopter. So there was something like taking over the computer, the technology, something with this.
Something just took over the controls.
Exactly, which very
Yeah.
much mirrors Kobe Bryant's crash, which is exactly what they showed me. And I'm telling you, it's a great reading, you guys. You might want to check this out in my episodes, because I go in explicit detail about it. And, do with the messages what you will, but I know what I saw. And I saw that guy on the fucking ground with a remote control. And he was somebody that worked, like, he's connected. And it was just one guy controlling that helicopter. And I've had the same feeling of this particular Black Hawk helicopter. I was like, what the heck? And they thought that they were in control, or maybe they thought they knew, or they thought they were, but there was something else like taking it for a ride from the ground. And this is very, very scary, because it's like, it almost feels like the movie, what is it, RoboCop, where the computers take over. I mean, but
Oh, Terminator?
oh, there we go.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
like, the feeling I had was like make it stop, and I could feel this panic going on inside this helicopter, like what's going on? They were like thinking they were on path, and then something changed. Something is off here. So this is what's got me confused, because this was off. The people down on the ground, I guess you'd call it air traffic control systems, they were getting wrong signals, or there's interruptions. So the communication is completely effed up. Like I could feel like one the people down below on the ground, the airport air traffic control, thought maybe one thing, but then it wasn't that thing. So this is where I start to panic, in this feeling of like, oh my god, what's going on? And I think that they saw that they were heading towards something, and they couldn't control it, and it happened so fast. Now why this woman stands out to me, I have no clue. I know that from what I understand, they're not disclosing all of the passengers on this particular helicopter flight. But I don't know why this woman stands out to me in such a degree that has me wondering, okay, why would they be so insistent on showing me this female? So this is where I kind of feel like, okay, let's go to this. But I feel like there's someone that was supposed to be quiet about something. There's enemies in the administration. There's enemies in conflict. Is This is exactly what Spirit told me and showed me. There's somebody on this Black Hawk helicopter where there is like this, they can't say anything, they can't talk. I felt this like restriction. And now last night when I was tapping into this, I was telling my co-host, I was like, I feel like someone's trying to strangle me. I feel like somebody's trying to shut me up, or like just take like one of those, extension cords, and just kind of crank me, like be quiet. And that was the feeling I had of whoever was in that helicopter. And that kind of blew my mind, because that's kind of indication of somebody really wanted to hurt somebody, meaning they were deliberately planning this, and they were controlling this craft, and make sure that they would crash based upon confusing the air traffic control systems, and based upon confusing the people that were inside the helicopter, where they thought one thing and it was not that. And I felt, from what Spirit showed me, the flight path, they were going to hit two other planes. And the third one struck, which is the American Airlines flight. So what's really weird about this whole thing too, and this is something I had jotted down in my channel notes, is I felt like there is this pattern. Spirit goes, bring up the pattern of the crashes. Pattern. So now I brought up Kobe Bryant, his crash, and then if you look at other crashes, like back, let's go back,
Brazil,
yes.
like a year ago.
And then they mentioned something that happened in the 1960s. You guys can look this up. I have no idea what the hell they're talking about. But my spirits goes, bring up a crash in the 1960s. And I'm going, what? So I thought that was very odd. But yeah, the Brazil crash. I mean, you all guys remember that? There was a bunch of scientists on a flight. I think that they were going to be talking about the pharmaceutical companies and the vaccines, and they had their proof, and they had their I don't know, evidence to say this or conclude that, and they were going to take all their information and discuss it. So apparently that was threatening, and so what they did is they hit a button from the ground to make sure that the technological stuff, or the control, the cockpit, whoever's in there, they shut systems down to make sure that that flight just kind of dumped from the sky. And if you watch the flight that happened in Brazil, that flight came like nothing was moving at that point, and it just literally was falling. So what it was like, it's like no way. You could just see it. Like you guys can look this up. It just literally just fell from the sky. Like you threw something out of, a moving plane just and just dumped it. It's like you got to be kidding me. And this is it's like how can you lose control of all those systems not unless somebody's manipulating it from the ground. So Spirit is mirroring that whole Kobe Bryant reading that I had done about somebody controlling something from the ground. Okay, now that was a helicopter. So now we got planes. And then I did a little like deep dive with astrology because I just kind of like to look around. And not that astrology is everything, because obviously what Spirit says has a lot of meat to the reading. But astrology is interesting because some of the stuff that was going on that day was striking. Um, we had Mars, Mercury, Chiron that was like a T square around that time. I think it was the 20th, or maybe it was the 21st to the 25th. Mars opposite of Mercury squaring Chiron. I mean, this is like movement, transportation, opposite Mars, explosions, fire, like accident prone stuff, like sudden events like happening out of nowhere, especially squaring Chiron, bodily injuries. And then you throw Mercury in there, you got like headlines, you got news, you got stuff like that going on. Because Mars involved makes me feel like there are people fighting or somebody's in conflict. So it means that it goes back to my prediction, or well, what my spirits were talking about. They said enemies, they said conflict, they said administration. So, what the hell is going on in our administration? We just have a new administration moving in. So, I know there's a lot of people that are getting cleared out because the new administration's coming in. Old administration might be like, they might be flushing people out. So, there's this conflict going on.
Well, the FFA isn't really super like there's not a big adjustment to that other than the people that are at the top. But they did say they were having problems with they were understaffed for the traffic control. So the traffic control was center was understaffed, and that's why they said they were having issues.
Now, who said that? And how do we know that that's true? You see what I'm saying? It's like,
Hmm.
how do we know that that's true? Because Spirit is saying that there was miscommunication from the actual um, helicopter to the traffic control systems down below. There was interruptions. They didn't get all the information. That's just what the news is fucking saying. And at this point, I don't really give a shit what the news says anymore, because how do you believe them? Because what Spirit says usually comes out to some kind of truth to it. So maybe there is something to that, but I'm hearing from my spirits, they're saying the lines of communication were missed on purpose. They shut down the communication, so they thought that they might have been going one way, or they were going one way and the whole entire craft was taking over a life of its own because the computers were being manipulated through someone on the ground. Then the communication was getting misconstrued to the people down there on the ground. Now maybe they were understaffed, but there's no fucking excuse for a Black Hawk helicopter to go right into a damn commercial airlines flight. That's ridiculous. So they're fucking up and they're doing something on purpose. They're doing something on purpose. You have a flight full of children. And to think that there was, you know, all this stuff going on where they were going to hit two other planes. And Spirit was like adamant about this. And then they were saying, look at the flight path, and look at what they were doing. There's something taking over that chopper. I can't even imagine me being in a goddamn Black Hawk plane, and then I'm thinking I'm going somewhere, do 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 do, And it's like, would you want to deliberately hit another commercial plane if you were in that chopper? No. You would, because that means you would die too. So guess what? There's a third party involved. It means somebody's controlling the technological aspect of this. Now, maybe there was air traffic control issues down below, but somebody wasn't getting the communication right. I feel like there was an interruption of something. That's what I think. And I really don't want to count on the news and like what they're saying. I can consider or factor in, but I'm going to roll with what my spirits are saying, and they're saying there's no excuse for this because they were deliberately trying to hit two other planes. That's what I was being told. They showed me the number 2, and the third one was the American Airlines plane.
Now, will any information come out about this, or is it just going to be hushed up and
I feel like
like
they're going to
thrown under the
cover it
rug?
up, much like we didn't hear anything much about what happened in Brazil
Yeah,
and
I
all
was
those.
just hoping maybe something would come out about it. That's what I was asking.
I think
If your
it very
spirits think
likely
so.
could. I don't think anyone's going to let this go. And think about the families that were waiting for their loved ones to fly in and land. Of all those kids, you can imagine all those parents are going to sue the living daylights out of that airlines, but they're going to do more of an investigation. There's not a lot of people that are going to let this go. Nobody's letting anything go anymore. So, there's no excuse for this. And we can blame all we want on, okay, it's this, it's that, and maybe there are accidents, I understand, but something feels very manipulated and very deceitful because I saw it. And I don't know why they flashed me this woman, felt like a female. I think she's connected to something on the helicopter.
Well, they haven't released the name of the female. There was a female on the helicopter flight on
Because
the Black Hawk.
I was doing a reading on it last night, and I did a little read on it this morning, and they kept bringing up the female, the female, the
Like
female.
the family doesn't want to release the name or something like that. That's what they're
Well,
saying.
I can understand, but again,
Yeah.
yeah, like that's what they're saying. You know what I mean? It's like I'm wondering if something took over that Black Hawk plane, the same thing that was happening with Kobe Bryant's helicopter. And there was this hush, like spirit went shh, like this. And when they do that, that's their indication to me they wanted someone to shut up. And I'm like, what is going on here? And then spirit says enemies, administration, enemies, and conflict, blah, blah, blah. Um, What's interesting too is we had Mercury rules communication. I'm just going back to astrology really quick, and or technology. And then I remember Uranus station direct. Okay. And that's why the sun and Pluto are in both in Aquarius, and that's all associated with aviation and technology. So the dark side is like that Plutonian energy, kind of hanging around with the energy of Aquarius. Yeah, it's like we're bound to bump into some problems where technology takes over, or we have technological issues. When I asked Spirit about the Philadelphia flight, and that plane that crashed, they said I heard from Spirit they lost control. And based upon what you told me, remember you said they didn't tie, something happened, right? Where it was too heavy.
Oh, with the other flight in Philly, they said that the gurney wasn't strapped down correctly that the child was on, and it came loose. And when it came loose, it unbalanced the load in the plane, and it shifted forward. Plus, they had tons of oxygen and stuff tanks inside, and when that happened, everything kind of went forward and caused the plane to really bank hard. That's what from what I heard from the news. So
And the other thing is too is I sense that these planes were flying a little too low. That's what Spirit was explaining to me too. Like something is just a little bit too low, how it was flying, or these planes. But I will reference that because that's here in my channel notes about it flying too low. Obviously it was flying too low and we crashed, but um I just heard from the Philadelphia plane they lost control. That's what I heard. Now the one that makes me really heated and angry is the Black Hawk. I won't buy it. I don't care what the news says. I don't care if they say it's air traffic control systems. I think there's something more sinister going on here. Um I'm waiting for more information to come out about this, but I don't know why that woman like pops up in my brain over and over again in my third eye, so to speak. But like she just there's something odd here, and I do feel like there is conflict with someone. There's enemies, there's people with all this Mercury going on. It's like, okay, communication, technology. Mercury has moved into Aquarius. Um and it's kind of interesting that, we would have, it doesn't surprise me that we would have technological issues. That doesn't surprise me at all. But I do feel with a lot of the energy around this crash, it's like I feel like there's a lot of deception there. And I just get upset because it's like all those kids. I saw all their face, I could see yesterday. I was like thinking about this and I can see their beautiful faces and I'm just like, no way. It's really heartbreaking. But I do believe there was some people inside that Black Hawk chopper. I believe there's somebody in there. And I think it was more than one person. This is the feeling I'm getting. I don't think it was empty. I know some people were asking me about that, like who was in there, And I was kind of like, no, spirit showed me somebody connected to the chopper. But I do believe that there was something computer generated that was like taking control.
Mm.
And then I also heard that Frontier Airlines was down. I also heard in Belgium they had technological issues and there was like a big closure for the day or something like this. Um which it's just kind of scary. But if you guys can just due to the numerology for those that are listening, um I don't want anyone to free. I mean, yeah, we have to fly when we have to fly, but if you can avoid flying on the 11th or the 29th, 2 plus 9 equals 11, try to just stay away from those numbers. It's just the energy around that 11 is just yucky when it comes to aviation and stuff. And then we got all this Pluto and Aquarius stuff going on. We really, we're relying so much on technology that it's kind of scary. That we're trusting an operated vehicle like that in midair to take us here and to and fro safely. So, um, I know a lot of my clients are reaching out to me. They're like, "Yeah, I'm probably not going to fly for a month. I might take it easy on flying," and I don't blame them. Um, but for the Kobe Bryant thing, I felt that they placed on the what spirit showed me on the tail end of that helicopter. There was a device. It looked like a metal, like it was almost like a magnet that would stick on the back of that tail end of the chopper. Somebody put something there. So someone could control it from the ground on a remote control and they can pull the back of the helicopter down like felt like somebody was pulling it to the ground. And then when they knew it was going to crash, they just hit a button and blew it up. So even the most advanced pilot, the most badass pilot that could be flying these choppers and planes, they would not be able to fight against something like that. They'd be completely confused inside the cockpit. Like, what is going on? Or they can just hit a button and shut off all technological stuff like they did in Brazil. They just hit the button and there was it's almost like someone just unplugging something and there's no service. And there you are out in the middle of the sky and there's nothing you can do but go down. Remember that flight for it was the Malaysia flight. You remember that? Am I saying
Oh,
that?
the one that just disappeared that they really
Yes.
haven't found much about? Yeah.
I've heard all kinds of stuff that those people on that particular flight, like they wanted them to disappear.
Yeah, and then there was another story about it. It was, the guy that was flying it had a death wish too, and he said he just banked it right into the ocean.
What do you mean?
There was a story about it, the guy that actually was the pilot, and he kind of lost his marbles, they said. Kinda lost it and decided just to dump it in the ocean. But then there's, like, that other flight, I can't remember where it was, I think it was Russia that had all the scientists going to a massive, like, convention for AIDS, and they were all scientists that were dealing with AIDS. They were, like, trying to find a cure. And there was a big group of them on a plane heading from Russia or going towards Russia. I can't remember. And they got shot down. That was a few years ago, though.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's all orchestrated. Yeah. Yeah, these people in this that are way higher up, they're the ones that are really high up. Um they have this ability to do this. They can just hit a button. And like I said, like that was the first time I've ever seen anything like that before, because I think Kobe Bryant's like chopper went down, what, 2020 or something? And that was the first
Yeah, it was like 2019, 2020, like
Yeah,
around that time.
something like that, and that was the first time I've ever seen anything like that, where they were able to, like, that's what blew my mind, that where they were able to control something from the ground. So it was like, that's what made me believe that when I start hearing about these crashes and these like mainstream people, like there was another crash that I think happened on the helicopter somewhere in California, um, and there was like a CEO or a VIP, someone from Africa, I can't or something from another foreign country, but I thought it was South Africa. I can't. Anyway, he was like a big Mongol or money person or something like
Mogul.
that. Yeah, there we go. Sorry.
He didn't he's not a part of a motorcycle gang. He's a mogul,
You know what I
not a
mean?
Mongol.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was one of those. Like, and I remember when I saw it on the news, I said to myself, they did something to that helicopter. It went down. Oh, that's right. He went down when there was a big sports event. You remember that?
I can't Oh, the Super Bowl last year, right?
Yes. And I
Yeah, it was last year. Like they had a massive crash after the Super Bowl.
is
I
there
remember that.
is
I
there
can look it up
even
real quick.
yeah, let's look it up, because I remember seeing that in the news, and the first thing Spirit said is, "Oh, that they took the chopper down on purpose." So if it's not greed or money, then it's power and control, or it's, quote unquote, shut the fuck up. You can't talk. Don't say nothing. Be quiet. And right now, as predicted for 2025, we are going to see a lot of destruction, and we're going to see a lot of what they claim to be accidents, because there are changes going on in our government, and they're either don't want to get caught, or they want to push an agenda, or they're trying to like get their way with something, or things like this. We're going to see a lot of this stuff going on.
Yeah,
um
it was a Nigerian bank CEO, a CEO Nigerian banker. He was among five of them, and I know there was some more information in there with people that were involved. I'm trying to find the information on that right
so he
now.
was in Nigeria. Okay, so
So he's a Nigerian banker.
yeah, and I remember when I saw that in the news, I said to myself, there's somebody that wanted him dead, so they just hit the button, just
Yeah.
took him out. Yeah. It's a shame, but they do have this technology where they can actually do that. But I can't. There's no way. And now, granted, let's just give them the benefit of the doubt that they made some mistakes at the air traffic control. Maybe they did, but that's a pretty bad mistake. But I am going to say this: I feel like someone did not give them the information correctly, or they muted something. And because there was this like deficit of communication, again, let's go back to some of the astrology a little bit here. Mercury ruling communication or technology, Uranus stations direct, and the sun and Pluto are all in Aquarius. It's like, my God, you know I'm wondering if there was like some kind of deficit. So I can't blame everyone down on the ground, the air traffic control. I feel like there's more to this. I'm not going to sit there and say it's these people, because with all that energy, we got enemies in the administration, and we got a government Blackhawk owned, I mean, this is the government stuff. So there you go. And why would it take this path? Spirit says, continue to look and review the path. I feel like, from what they told me and what I was being shown, is there was two other near misses of planes, and I think the third one struck. They showed me the number two. I thought, why would they intentionally do this? I can't imagine if I'm sitting in the cockpit of some helicopter. There ain't no way I'm flying anything into anything. I would certainly do everything in my power to avoid that, because that means you die too, right? Not unless you're going to jump out of it.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay. So then Spirit says, no, it's the computers. They're being controlled from the ground. So it was literally controlling this thing from the ground.
Yeah, apparently, like, the guys on the flight from the Super Bowl one was the head of the Nigerians, like, our chief, and, like, the what do they call it? Let's see here. He was a Nigerian businessman, but he was, like, also a chairman in the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And then the other guy was the head of Access Bank, which is Nigeria. It's worth, like, 1,419,000,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty, it's a shame. It's
Yeah,
a
it's worth 25,000,000,000. That's what it's worth.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah,
lots of money.
enemies, money, enemies in administration, control, power. That old Plutonian thing with Aquarius. I mean, it's undeniable with all this with all these transits. I mean, it really mirrors tragedy. It really mirrors like explosions and accidents and injuries, things like that that can happen around this time, or around that time when it did, between the 21st and the 25th. I mean, it was like Mars, I believe it's the 25th. 25th, yeah. Sure hope I'm right. But I know, like, through that energy, it's just kind of tough around that time. But I would say, as things continue to move, we had the new moon in Aquarius, and then we have Mercury moving into Aquarius. But again, news headlines, um, anything squaring Chiron, we're bound to bump into some sudden events and crashes and accidents. So the energy is really, really very much amplified by astrology. But outside of that, just from a careful assessment, spiritually speaking, and my psychic assessment, I truly, I'm gonna back my spirits up, and I can't just blame the air traffic control people on the ground. I can't. I think that something was muted, or they couldn't hear something, or they didn't get the whole gist. Because Spirit says it's not their fault. And they said it was a setup and it was planned, but the computers took over, or there was service interruption, technological issues, and then the computer taking over the whole entire helicopter. I don't think that helicopter was empty, because I saw souls in there. Well, people, and then now souls, unfortunately. So, and Spirit says, you have to talk about how we showed you what happened to Kobe Bryant's helicopter, and then bring this whole crash up, and let them sit with that and let them think about it. I said, okay. Um, and the souls that have passed, these young kids, they're all right. They're on the other side, because I feel just absolutely terrible about, the families that were left behind. And obviously, my prayers and my heart goes out to the families that were left behind. But I do know that this was not just an accident. Now, the Philadelphia plane, I'm getting more, some they lost control, and Spirit didn't really, get too much into that. But they
That's
did.
coming across more as an accident, just a freak accident.
I mean, these flights can get heavy and stuff like that, but I'm not getting a lot of stuff on that one. I got a
Oh,
lot
okay.
of stuff. Yeah. I feel like from what Spirit says, quote unquote, they lost control.
Mhm.
And there was something about the planes kind of flying a little bit low, is what I've been hearing. But I suggest those that are watching, if you're going to fly, if you want to take a trip somewhere, or if you're flying a lot, or you're wondering if you should fly, you need to always check in with your ancestors and just say, hey, are we good? Does everything look clear? Can we go? Before I fly anywhere, before I go anywhere, I always ask first, because you just never know. And I'm not trying to put any fear into anyone, but after watching this shit show, it's like, you gotta kind of wonder. But there's people on these on the helicopter, I think more so than I would say, or at all, on the American Airlines I got nothing on that, but I did get something on the Black Hawk flight. That there's someone that was on there or connected to it that they just didn't want something to they didn't want them to survive. And they were trapped and confused. I think they didn't know what was going on. But I had a hard time reading yesterday because I kind of felt like somebody was trying to like shut me up, or someone's trying to put something around my throat. And spirit says, no, that was someone in the chopper. That was for someone in the chopper. I was like, oh, because I kept coughing and choking, and I'm thinking, what the hell's going on? And I was drinking some water, and I felt like someone came from behind and just tried to crank me like that, with a rope or some kind of cord or something, like, be quiet. Shh, you know. And I think somebody was on these particular operated flights here, that they wanted someone to be quiet. But I'm leaning more towards the Black Hawk energy than I am more so the American Airlines. I'm not sure what's going on over there. I got nothing for the moment now, but right now I feel it. But I do know that this wasn't, I cannot close on this psychic assessment and say that this was an accident. There's no way. And I don't care who talks to me or says, oh, April, there you go with all your conspiracy. I honestly forget it. No, I'm not gonna lean into it, because I know my spirit showed me that there was manipulation here, that they made sure that that chopper did not fly on the right path and did not and would crash. It's quite a mistake to almost have like near misses with two. Do you know if it was did you see the flight path? Did you look at anything on that?
I'm trying to find the flight path of the helicopter. It seems to be I'm not finding any on that day. I'm finding the previous date's flight paths. The plane is easy to find, but the helicopter is not.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like, because Spirit like said, hey, there's two other planes that I think it almost hit. Like they were
Yeah, that's what they were saying too. I've heard that also. That actually almost they missed a couple other planes, and then the day before also there was issues.
they showed me the number two, and they said that they tried.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
huh.
And and there's something about the woman, or at least I saw a female for sure. I got a feminine energy about something connected to the helicopter. So, and I'm just having I just find this deeply suspicious, and I mean, I want to just give the people down at the air traffic control, like, okay, maybe it was a mistake or there were understaffed, but something tells me that they're just saying that to shut everybody up. I think that there's more to this, you guys. For those that are listening, listen to me. There's more to this. Like, we can't just sit back and say, yeah, okay. I'm not getting much on the Philadelphia plane crash, except I hear from what Spirit says they lost control, but it just seems very, very odd. And again, we can expect like cyber attacks, we can expect like technological issues. When it comes to all this Aquarius stuff going on, with Pluto moving into Aquarius, like, how dependent are we on technology? Where we got things like, basically the plane could just fly itself. I mean, that's how great our technology is, but how does that work against us? Because someone could just hit a button and just say, oh, you're not going to be flying in midair anymore. Now you're going to crash. If they get upset, or if there's somebody um, that they don't want to make it or survive. So um, it's kind of scary. You know what I mean? Especially if we know what happened with the plane flight in Brazil, And I mean, all these scientists and that one plane flight going to Russia, all these scientists, all these people that had a cure for AIDS. You know what I mean? Because for those that are listening, AIDS, I'm sure you guys are hoping you guys know that that was a man-made thing. There's if you want to go down the rabbit hole, feel free to do it, but it didn't just pop up. It's very much similar to COVID, and it's all manipulated. They just and then they let the people just spread it because COVID's very real, and so is HIV and AIDS. And cancer is very real. Obviously, we're losing people left and right from cancer, but they do have a cure. They just make too much fucking money off of it. Because I got souls that have passed from cancer that come through, and they tell me they already have a cure. I could have had a chance. Or people that could have gotten a. I had a client, this is true story, that had a loved one that passed and they wanted to connect with their loved one in the reading, okay? And they lost that loved one because they didn't get a transplant because they were an addict. And that's very sad. So you would have to be sober and prove that you've been sober or something for like, I don't even know how many years. I don't know. And so they didn't qualify for a transplant. And I can understand certain regulations from it. I can understand it, but I can't like I just don't get it. And then I got some clients that are calling me that were supposed to get a transplant, but they were denied it because they didn't get the COVID vaccine. Now that is cruel. So it's like, you know what I mean? If you're making all this money, especially the medical field, they really don't want anyone curing anything. So it's just easy to hit a button when you're in midair and kill them all. The people that are trying to save the world, help the world. Yeah. This is like some people call it a spiritual war, good and evil, all that. But it's money versus the people, really. If it really comes down to it, because money. Um, and you got power and things like that. They just want to keep everybody small. And Spirit showed me an image of Saturn, the planet Saturn. Saturn has all these like rings around it, the planet. But Saturn is very karmic. And this is a 9 year. For those that no, it's a 9 year. 2025, you add all those digits together, you get a nine. Now, we have this chance to change the karma. When Spirit showed me the rings of Saturn, it's going around and around and around. And all we're going to keep doing is just repeating itself, repeating itself, repeating itself. And this year is going to be a very big year. And if we don't make these changes, if we don't change something soon, we just keep going into the same cycles, even in our personal life and even in our world and our countries and our states and our cities. And then we're trapped in this cycle. That's why they call it karma. What goes around comes around. It's like boom, boom, you know? And so I feel like this year is going to be a year of cleanup, a year of buttoning up, a year of fighting against evil, trying to break the cycles of karma, including in our government. So, all these transits, for those that are listening, hear me out. What is happening this year is undeniable. We have Pluto in Aquarius. Last transit was until 1771 to 1798. That's the French Revolution. We have Neptune moving into Aries, and that's when the American Civil War was. And last transit was 1861 to 1875. We have Uranus moving into Gemini this year. Last transit was 1941 to 1949, and that was World War II. Innovation through conflict, all this stuff. And so we are coming back around full circle. That's why Spirit was showing me the rings of Saturn. So it's sort of like this is our chance right now to hit the reset button and change things. Um what is no longer serving us or what are no longer working, there's going to be this resistance and fighting because we have to change something. So we're going to be in a lot of conflict this year. whether it's in our administration, the people versus the people. They call these things terrorist attacks. Be careful falling into that title when you see the news. And they'll say, oh, it's this terrorist attack. Oh my God, oh my God. It ain't no terrorist attack. It's the Americans versus the Americans, or it's our government versus the people, because it was all set up what they did for 9/11. So be careful of what they call a terrorist attack, like even with the planes and all this stuff going on, okay? Because it's we have enemies in the inside, and it's dangerous. We have snakes. This is a year of the snake.
Well, I'm finding something interesting right now. I'm looking for the flight path on that, and I know you probably have people out there listening that they're better at than me. And I have a buddy that works in aviation. He's trying to find it, and it's not out there right now. At least I can't find it, and he's not finding it. If there's one of the listeners out there that might be able to find it, it'd be interesting to kind of see the flight path and where it originates and where it moves around, and to get an
Yeah,
idea, because I can find his past days, like days like previously, like the 24th and previous to that. Nothing on the 29th.
I
So
see.
it's like almost like it's been scrubbed,
Of
but
course, because
it might be out there and I'm just not finding it.
but Spirit did talk about specifically that flight path is it's computerized.
Yeah.
Like something was being controlled in that flight path, but by like a computer or somebody else on
Yeah.
the ground. And I'm not
Well, it seems like there's like some shenanigans around it, cuz like I'm not finding it online. And
sure.
I'm really like searching for it right now. I've been looking for like the last 5 minutes and I found nothing. It's
I
really
mean,
odd.
it's easy to make something look like an accident, right?
Yeah.
Got something to hide. And they can easily say, oh, it's a technical issue, or it's a cyber attack, or it's a terrorist attack. And this is the stuff I'm talking about. It's like we have to be careful and do our research. But I know that the flight path for they were very specific. They said follow the flight path, and it will show that there's something else taking over it. Is it in human form? Could be on the ground, not people inside the Black Hawk chopper. So, but I can't say that they were in control of this. Something else was in control of them, or in control of that particular flight. And I felt that they were close to hitting. There was like two. I kept getting the number two, and I kept getting something about other planes that it could have potentially hit. But the fact that Spirit was so specific about a remote control controlling it, I'm going to honor that, because they're making me feel like it's something similar. It's mirroring something similar. And I brought up the other major crashes and the controversy behind that, and because there are important people that they wanted to make that pass away in these tragic accidents, that but they had something important to do, or to help or change the world, and there's this like, let's just snuff them out and just act like nothing happened. Same thing with Boeing. Remember Boeing, that guy that was like whistleblowing everybody left and right because he knew that they were cheaply putting things together.
Yeah, the whistleblower, and he got just disappeared.
They
Or he
whacked him.
died. Yeah.
They whacked him, you know what I mean? Because they
Yeah.
just wanted him to shut up. And so it's
Not
like,
the first time that happens.
no, I think there was more than one, right?
Mhm. I think there was 2. Pretty sure there was 2.
Yeah.
Everybody shut up basically, real quick.
But with these transits, I will honor the fact and what Spirit says. There's enemies on the inside. There's enemies in our administration, and meaning the administration versus the administration. There's people fighting within the government, and because this is a government helicopter, it's like it makes it even more obvious that there's something not quite right, especially in Washington D.C. Interesting. So, um, but I did predict, did I not? I talked about Washington D.C.
You did, and you said something about Philadelphia. I believe you did. I thought you no, maybe you didn't. I'm not sure,
I
but I
don't
know you
know.
said DC.
I didn't say anything about Philadelphia. I don't remember that. I do
Yeah.
remember specifically predicting something about lay low in Washington, D.C. Be careful over there.
Mhm.
That I felt that
Yeah.
there could be some kind of tragic event that could happen there. We need to be very careful. And it was in the month of January, and I was sticking to around the inauguration time. And we just had the inauguration, and here we are. So very concerning. So I just I feel so. This is just devastating news. And again, this was priority. This is what I got. And again, do with the messages what you will. But this is my take on this in a psychic, spiritual investigation. A little bit of astrology in there per transits, so forth. Um, but my spirits are would not close on this reading and say yes, this was an accident. The one in Washington D.C. No, they said we refuse to close and say that that is the conclusion. The conclusion is this was manipulated and it was no accident. And I just, want to also share that, yeah, there was some technical issues. Yes. Um, but I'm wondering if the people on the ground weren't getting the messages right. There was service interruption. There was something going on here, including the people that were inside the Black Hawk helicopter. And I felt like the computers were taking control, very similar to how Kobe Bryant's helicopter went down and what the spirit showed me. Um, but I see this being a federal investigation. I see this being a cyber security investigation. That's all very Pluto in Aquarius energy, that Plutonian stuff. I feel like this isn't over yet. Um, and I think we're going to find out more information, but I feel that there was people in that chopper. I know that there was some people in there, but I'm wondering about this female. Really has it's I'm just curious. I'm going to wait and see how this goes, but I feel like there's definitely more to the story for sure, and I feel like somebody was not going to be quiet about something. I get crickets on the American Airlines and the people in there. I'm not sure that's about, but Spirit didn't really get into that. They were more focused on the people in the Black Hawk chopper. But but this is what I got, dear friends. Thank you all for listening. This is about the crash in Washington D.C., a little bit on the Philadelphia plane crash as well. Um, thank you so much for listening. Until the next episode, if you guys wish to book a reading with me, you can come check me out. My services availability at austrayastoundance.net. If you guys want to check me out on Instagram, you can check me out at austrayastoundance. Thank you all for listening.